Week 3 is in the books. Week 4 is here. The Seattle Seahawks keep us on track, finishing as a top 3 unit, and that makes it 3 weeks in a row. One of our defensive streamers, 25% owned or less, finished inside the top 3. Seattle Seahawks ranked number 2 pending Monday Night Football with 17 fantasy points. They were 23.7% owned going into last week. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers also tied for 4th on the week in fantasy points, which marks back to back to back. Every single week so far, we have had 2 of our streamers finish inside the top 8 on the week in fantasy points. The Falcons were a disappointment. If you played them, I apologize. The defense played good, but they ended up finishing 19th. They gave up, pick 6 on offense. The offense also, Michael Penix and them just put the defense in short fields, short positions. It just was a really bad game for the offense, and the defense struggled. But under 225 yards allowed is what the Falcons did on defense. And so five fantasy points when a team, you see the scoreboard say 30 points, is actually not that bad. It's crazy that you even got any fantasy points. But again, that was a miss by me. Let's turn the page here and look at next week here at week 4. And my number 1 defense on the week is the Chargers taking on the Giants, 8.7% rostered across fantasy formats. We get an away team here, but we do get a low point total. Tied for 5th lowest point total on the week for an offense is what the Giants have, 19.5 per Vegas. And I do think it's going to be Russell Wilson back there for the Giants. And when we look at this Giants offense, the offense has been bad this year, of course, and I don't have to tell you that. 20th in EPA right now, in total EPA. And I think this is going to be the best defense that this Giants has played so far this year. I do think that the Chargers defense is going to be one of the better units in the NFL this year, and they're performing that way. They're 4th in defensive EPA. You can see them on the chart there where the Jaguars are. And ultimately, I think this is a game where the Chargers defense maybe has a little bit of a coming out party against an offense that is struggling, right? Russell Wilson and the Giants, if they're not getting explosive plays, they're not doing much. Now, Cam Scadaboo looked good last week, and maybe that can continue for their run game. But ultimately, I expect the Giants to struggle in this game. Giants right now, 19th in points per game allowed to opposing defenses. So that might not be the best thing that you want to hear. But again, this is the best defense that they've played, in my opinion. And so I think this is a good matchup for the Chargers. Seven total sacks on the year is what the Giants had given up. And now Andrew Thomas is back, so that should help the offensive line. But right now, they're 8th in quarterback pressure percentage, and that factors in the 1 week that Andrew Thomas was back, and it's only a 3-week sample size, right? So I think this offensive line is not very good. I don't have to tell you that for you to know that, but ultimately, I like the Chargers here. Chargers 19th in quarterback pressure percentage, but this is the worst offensive line that the Chargers have played. And keep in mind, the Chargers just, right now, their defense 18th in terms of points per game, for their defense for fantasy. But they just played the Broncos, and the Broncos, while they have turnovers, the Broncos are by far the lowest quarterback pressure percentage in the NFL. And they actually did pressure Bo Nix a decent amount last week, which was encouraging for this Chargers defense. But they don't take a lot of sacks in Denver. And so that definitely doesn't help them either. And I think this is a much, much better matchup for them. And ultimately, this is the worst offense that the Chargers are going to face, at least up until this point of the year. So I like the Chargers here, and I think this is a good get right, maybe coming out party for this defense. Number 2. I have the New England Patriots here at number 2. They're at home against the Carolina Panthers, 19.8% rostered across fantasy formats. We do get a home team. We do get a low point total. They are tied for 5th, lowest point total, 19.5 in terms of the team total for the Carolina Panthers. And Panthers right now, their offense is 21st in the NFL in offensive EPA. You'll see them on the chart there. This is not a very good offense. They're 8th in fantasy points allowed to opposing fantasy defenses. 9th lowest yards per game for this offense, and they really have struggled this year. That last week against the Falcons, they didn't have a single lead in a game the first 2 weeks of the year, and obviously that changed after week 3. But ultimately, this is an offense that struggled, and you'll see it there. 13th lowest points per game, 20.7. 9th lowest yards per game are the Carolina Panthers, and so this is an offense that's still missing Robert Hunt. Still missing Austin Corbett. They're both on IR, and 17th in quarterback pressure percentage, but that could probably get worse the longer that those guys are out. They're going up against a defense in the Patriots that right now is seventh highest scoring defense in fantasy right now, which is pretty surprising. The kick returns have helped, right? They've got a good special teams unit, so there's been some points that have came from that. But Patriots, 25th in defensive EPA. That is not what we want to see, of course. But I think it's just a case of, hey, we're making a bank. We're banking on a low point total, a home team, and a bad offense, right? And we kind of hold your nose and pray for good luck. But I think this Patriots defense could be good here if Christian Gonzalez comes back, which I'm expecting. It's a high floor, medium ceiling with this defense. And I'm going to go over my rankings at the end of this, like I do every video. I don't have a lot of, I don't think these defenses that are streaming, there's not a ton of options this week, guys. A lot of fantasy managers are becoming more savvy. They're stashing defenses, and ultimately, there's a lot of heavily owned defenses. Some owners are rostering too, which is why there's less and less available to pick from. But ultimately, I think there's some high floors here and some decent ceilings for these plays. Moving on to our last defense, and this is more of a defense in deeper leagues. It's going to be the Jacksonville Jaguars against the 49ers, 4.8% rostered across fantasy formats. This is an away team. It's tied for the eighth lowest point total at 21.5. So we don't get a very low point total. We don't get an away team. We don't get a terrible offense, right? The 49ers EPA on offense, they're 14th. So they're a slightly above average offense right now. Mac Jones is playing solid, but ultimately, this is a team that, giving up two sacks per game with Mac Jones under center. I think Brock Purdy might get the start, but even if Purdy's there, right, is he going to be 100%? Is Juwan Jennings going to play? No George Kittle. We know that. And ultimately, I think this Jaguars defense is just good, right? We've seen them and we've been tricked before, but Jacksonville Jaguars defense right now, you see where the Chargers are. This is the number number 3 defense in points per game for the fantasy football position, but also Jaguars defense second in EPA this season. 8th in total pressures, and this is an offense in the 49ers that right now is 10th in pressure percentage. And I think they can get to the quarterback in this game. I think it's a little scary to maybe fire up this defense, especially if you have some of the other options ahead of them. But if you're in a deep league, this could be a sneaky defense that could finish high. Again, this is the number 3 defense in fantasy football right now, and they've played some bad offenses, but the 49ers aren't lighting the world on fire at the moment, right? They have their issues as well, and when you factor in that the Jaguars should have had a defensive touchdown against the Bengals that got blown dead, which was clearly the guy did not go down in that game, they would actually be the number 1 defense on the season so far, fantasy-wise. And so I think they're a solid play, especially in deeper formats. That's where I would consider them. And ultimately, this is just a bank on a defense that's just playing very, very good right now. Trayvon Walker, the gentleman that was the number 1 overall pick, is turning things around a little bit, and he's really not being talked about, but he's playing very, very good so far to start the year. Let's go ahead and move over to my full rankings. To start off tier number 1, we have the Houston Texans here at number 1, and the Houston Texans take on the Tennessee Titans, rookie quarterback Cam Ward. They are at home in this game. It's a Sunday 1 o'clock kickoff, and the Texans defense is very, very good. We know this, and Cam Ward has struggled, right? He's taken some sacks, right? It's a rookie. He's young. He's going to make mistakes, and ultimately, I like the Texans here as my number 1 defense. Then you have the Denver Broncos here taking on the Cincinnati Bengals. That's a home game here as well, and Denver's defense looked good against the Chargers last week. They ended up breaking down at the end of the game just because they were put in some tough spots. But ultimately, I like Denver against the Cincinnati Bengals. We just saw the Bengals get absolutely throttled by the Vikings, and the Broncos run some similar concepts, right? A lot of simulated pressure, just like the Vikings do. And so ultimately, I think the Broncos are in a good spot at home as a game that they need to bounce back and win. Then you have the Buffalo Bills here at number 3, and Buffalo's going to be number 1 probably for a lot of rankings. I still like them this week, but they did let us down a little bit in a good spot against the Dolphins at home last week. They take on the New Orleans Saints, and we saw the Saints have just struggled. They have some playmakers on that team, but ultimately, I hope that the Buffalo Bills can get healthy. hopefully Ed Oliver's back. But I didn't love the pass rush, especially in that game. It just didn't seem like a team in the Bills that got off the bus last week. So I'm dropping them down a little bit, but I like them still. If you have them, you're probably playing them. Then I had the Minnesota Vikings here at number 4, and Minnesota Vikings take on the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now that is a Sunday 9:30 Eastern time game. It's an international game, and that's a international games tend to be very very messy, tend to be a little bit wonky, and ultimately I like them in this matchup here. Vikings taking on a Steelers offense with Aaron Rodgers, who while they're not giving up maybe a ton of pressure, the pressure to sack rate is very high. Rodgers is taking sacks when he is getting pressured. And we know what this Vikings defense can do. They can get to the quarterback and cause issues, and they ultimately are very opportunistic, right? They cause turnovers. So I like the Vikings there at number 4. Then we're going to move over to our great tier, tier 2, and the Lions here at number 5. Lions are also taking on a not great offense in the Browns. Browns offense is going to be okay. Quinshon Judkins looks good. Ultimately, I think their Lions are going to be able to, score points against the Browns, even though it's a good defense, but they're going to be able to score points. They are at home, and Browns might have to play catch up and ultimately have to throw the football, right? The Browns last week against the Packers didn't have to air it out a million times, and because of that, they didn't have to put the ball in harm's way and throw the ball with Flacco a ton of times, leading to some sacks. I like the Lions there. Then I had the Pittsburgh Steelers, the other side of that international game against the Vikings, and Vikings right now have Carson Wentz under center, and I didn't really like what I saw from Wentz when he was pressured. He took some sacks, and when he was kind of erratic. And I think the Steelers can generate some pressure. Darashaw is back, so that should definitely significantly help them. But I think that the Steelers defense could perform in this one pretty well. So I like them here in a messy international game. Then I have the Packers here, and Packers are a great defense, right? They're taking on the Cowboys, who are missing CeeDee Lamb, right? And that's going to be a huge hit to that offense for the Cowboys, but the Packers are traveling in this one, and so I ding them a little bit for that. And I think the Cowboys can still score points even if CeeDee Lamb is not suiting up for that game, which I don't think he is. But George Pickens, Ferguson, they have some okay pieces. I still like the Packers in that matchup, but I have them there at number 7. Moving on to tier number 3, that's the good tier, and you have the Chargers. Then you have the Patriots, who we've kind of talked about both of those defenses already. I don't have to go super in depth, but the Chargers again taking on the Giants. Then you have the Patriots, who Patriots are taking on a Carolina team at home. Then I have the Seattle Seahawks, and Seattle Seahawks super impressive. Their special teams unit's been very good as well. Has given us points in fantasy, especially if your leagues allow for special teams points, which they should. Their defense has been very, very good. So I like Seattle in that matchup against Arizona. Now it is on the road, but I think they can pressure Kyler and get to the quarterback in that one. Then I have the Washington Commanders, another defense that has been very, very good, has been surprisingly playing well this year. They're taking on the Atlanta Falcons. So they are on the road in this one. And so that I don't love. But we just saw the Atlanta Falcons score 0 points against the Carolina Panthers. If the Falcons end up coming out swinging and bouncing back, okay, we live with it. But I mean, Washington's defense is playing good. And if you're going to get shut out by the Panthers, I can't take you that serious as an offense. Moving on to tier number 4, you have the Philadelphia Eagles going on the road to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They're my number 12 ranked defense. And the Eagles, they're taking on an offense in the Bucs that have some injuries right now. Tristan Wirfs is banged up. I don't know if he's playing this week. They have some other offensive line issues. Mike Evans may not play, right? He's got the hamstring injury. I would assume he's going to at least miss 1 week. So Mike Evans might not play in that one, but the Eagles had issues traveling last year against this Bucs team. And we know this Bucs team, their defense played good last week against the Jets, but this is not the Jets. This is the Eagles, and the Eagles defense can definitely take advantage against an offense that's beat up right now. So I like the matchup for that Eagles defense. Then you have the Arizona Cardinals, and the Cardinals are at home in this one against Seattle. I haven't given the Cardinals a ton of credit. Ultimately, I think they've played some some bad offenses, and so it's kind of boosted things up a little bit. They did play good against the 49ers, though, and the 49ers were missing a lot of pieces in the secondary. Sorry, the Cardinals were missing a lot of pieces in the secondary, and so to play as good as they did is pretty impressive. They are taking on Seattle in this matchup, but they are at home, so I like the Cardinals in this matchup. Then you have the Tennessee Titans here, and the Tennessee Titans are taking on the Houston Texans in this matchup, and Houston Texans have only scored 3 total touchdowns all year on offense. They are struggling to find the end zone. They have their issues, in the front seven for Tennessee is pretty good. They don't have an amazing pass rush, but they can stop the run. And ultimately, their secondary is where I have the biggest concerns in this one. But I think the Titans are a little bit of a better defense that people give them credit for. Then I have the Baltimore Ravens here at number 15, and the Baltimore Ravens, they take on a Kansas City Chiefs team who they're not. Their offense doesn't look that good either. Rashi Rice is not walking through that door. Xavier Worthy might be walking through that door this week. We'll see. But I think the Ravens are in a good spot here. I like this matchup for them. Now they are going on the road in Kansas City, but ultimately Ravens can score points, and maybe they force Kansas City to have to throw a ton, and maybe that leads to some sacks, some turnovers. But I have them here as a solid play. Then you have the Jacksonville Jaguars, and Jacksonville Jaguars take on the 49ers. We talked about it. What I would say is it's worth noting that the 49ers didn't light the world on fire against the Cardinals last week, who were missing 3 defensive starters in the secondary, right? And so Jaguars, maybe can take advantage and maybe play a little bit of a spoiler here for a team that's 3-0 in the 49ers, who maybe are still not taking this Jaguars team serious. I think this defense could have a solid outing. Then we have some average plays, some deep league plays. If you have to, these are defenses that I'm not loving that you play them, but if you have to, and maybe some of these defenses that we've talked about are taken, I like the Rams here. Rams are taking on a team in the Indianapolis Colts that are red hot right now. It's a good defense versus a good offense. Maybe we see one of the two give here. Right, we saw the Rams play good defensively, in my opinion, against the Eagles until things kind of opened up. But maybe the Colts, who are the Colts, a better offense. I guess they're playing hotter than the Eagles right now. But ultimately, I think I would take the Eagles offense 10 out of 10 times over the Colts. And so I would say maybe there's a chance that the Rams defense can play here, but that Colts offensive line is very, very good. Then you have the San Francisco 49ers. I'd love to have them higher against a Jaguars team that is opportunistic when it comes to turnovers and all that good stuff. But 49ers just are missing Nick Bosa, so that concerns me in that one. They are playing at home though, so maybe a solid play. That run defense is still really good. Then you have the Cleveland Browns going on the road against the Lions in this matchup. Cleveland Browns looked really good last week against the Packers team. We'll see. They may have to. I mean, this is ultimately, to me, I think the Lions are a better offense. But obviously Lions played the Packers, and we saw that worked out. They weren't the better offense that day. But I think that the Browns are an okay play, just banking on a good defense here. But I would not want to start them if I could avoid it. But we'll see. Then you have the Colts here, and the Colts take on the Rams. That defense for the Colts has been good, and Rams offense has been good too. This is going to be a good matchup overall. I mean, both very good both sides of the ball are playing very, very good. The Colts there, that's a defense that's getting healthy. So I have them here at number 20. Then I had the Tampa Bay Buccaneers going up against the Eagles. That run defense for Tampa is very, very good. The number one run defense since last year in EPA to now. That secondary is a little bit of a concern. Maybe the Eagles have to open it up against them. So we'll see. We did see the Eagles open it up a little bit this week. They may have to be forced to throw it a little bit more again. Then you have the Atlanta Falcons. We talked about their struggles last week. They're going to be at home against the Washington Commanders. Maybe this defense moves up a little bit if Jaden Daniels doesn't play, but I have a feeling he is going to play. Then we have the Bengals here, and then the Bears. Bengals going up against Bo Nix. Maybe they can cause some issues. Maybe they feel like they're being taken lightly. They are going on the road. This isn't a great defense, and this is an offense that's not giving up many sacks. But they are also turning the ball over, this Broncos offense. So we could see maybe the Bengals as a decent, like, deep play. But I would rather go other places. And then of course we talk about the Bears. And the Bears defense, I had a tough time with them because EPA wise they're not very good, but they did just shut down the Cowboys. But they're dealing with their own injuries as well. And so I'm not in love with the Bears. That pass rush is not great, but maybe they can have a game against the Raiders offense that's had their issues as well. But that's gonna do it for me, guys. Thank you so much for watching. This is always a fun show. I've had a lot of fun this year so far. Let's keep things going. If you have questions or comments or concerns, let me know. I'll continue to update the rankings throughout the week like I do every single week. So make sure you're paying attention to that. And I'll see you guys next time.